I assume we're already excited. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's 11:30 now, but we'll just wait 5 minutes for a few more people to join and then we'll get right into it. Thank you. Okay, good morning again, everyone, and thank you very much for joining. We'll just get straight into it. So welcome to the third episode of the 2023 Arnergy Sustainability Series. My name is Fadira Rashegun, and I'll be your host and moderator for this insightful session on reducing household energy bills through cost-effective solar solutions. I'm thrilled to introduce to you our distinguished panel of experts who bring a diverse range of perspectives, from seasoned industry veterans to emerging thought leaders, each offering unique perceptions that promise to enrich our understanding of the topic at hand. Here with me on the panel today is Henry Ejinwa, Regional Sales Manager of West and Central Africa for JA Solar. With vast professional experience in business development, engineering design, project deployment, and technical commissioning. Having almost a decade of experience within the renewable energy industry in Nigeria and West Africa, Henry is passionate and committed to utilizing renewable energy to implement the global sustainable energy goals and achieve a more energy efficient society to mitigate climate change. Next, we have Natasha Ibori, CEO and co-founder of Uwana Energy. As an impact-driven executive, she is committed to energy equality and is accomplished at driving sustainable development initiatives. Natasha has worked in climate and finance across 4 continents and is experienced in building holistic solutions. She has also assisted Grow World Climate Fund in allocating $1 billion in aligned funding for energy transition projects globally, and has executed award-winning development initiatives with Access Bank and PwC in Nigeria. And last but not the least, we have Engineer Aziz Onoshoga, Vice President of Operations at Arnergy, with over 15 years of experience in operations management, process optimization, customer relationship management, and product management, which includes project delivery, quality assurance, quality control, and change management. As an associate member of the Nigerian Society of Engineers and registered members of the Council of Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria, Aziz is a staunch advocate for clean energy adoption. I want to extend my thanks to the 3 of you for joining me today for this exciting discussion. So in a world where the looming sector of climate change demands swift action, the transition towards renewable energy sources has taken center stage. Solar power in particular has emerged as a formidable player in the quest for energy sustainability. Today, we will delve deep into the realm of cost-effective solar solutions that promise to alleviate the burden of household energy expenses whilst reducing our carbon footprint. As we traverse solar solutions, it is vital to address financial considerations. With the subsidy removal that was experienced nationwide, the average diesel prices rose from about 288 Naira per litre to about 840 Naira per litre between January 2022 and June of 2023. Effective energy management, coupled with precise system integration, is the linchpin to achieving sustainable cost savings. In this webinar, we will explore the following topics: evaluating the impact of rising energy bills on economic growth, discussing the challenges of powering homes using fuel generators, making the right and safe investments in renewable and solar solutions, and reviewing the role of energy efficiency in managing utility expenses. This webinar should leave you armed with knowledge to make informed decisions about adopting solar technologies and will transform your household into a beacon of sustainable energy efficiency. Thank you very much for your attention thus far, and without further ado, let's begin. So straight into the questioning, I would like to open with Henry. This question is for you. What level of power supply stability and sustainability can homes achieve with fuel generators?
So to be very honest, I think a lot of us in Nigeria, I would say specifically, are highly dependent on utilizing M4 for providing electricity. But how sustainable is this? So in terms of from the urban point of view, I think this is about maybe 25% to 30% sustainable, in the sense that you can only power your home for about, I would say, 5 to 7 hours a day. utilizing maybe your fuel generator, which from my own personal observation runs between, I think, 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. to about, I would say 11 p.m. thereabouts. So that's about 25% sustainability in terms of the 24 hours availability in terms of energy or electricity supply. Then from the rural point of view, I think it runs about maybe 10-15% thereabout. So to be very honest, from a generator or diesel point of view, it is not highly sustainable to be able to run your home efficiently or your household or your business efficiently utilizing any of these sources of power. So personally, I think it is high time we drastically look into alternative measures, which are already currently, they've been tested, they've been proven to provide electricity, to provide access to energy at a very much cost-effective rate. Yeah. Yeah, hi, Federa. I'm not sure if you heard me very clearly.
Sorry, there was some technical difficulty. My unmute wasn't working, but thank you very much for that, Henry. I completely agree with you on that standpoint. As you mentioned, you can even see the disparity between the urban areas and rural areas. So that's also something that we need to explore and ensure that as a nation, energy equality is something that we can achieve in the much nearer future. Thank you very much again, Henry. So on to you, Aziz. This question is for you. How cost effective and viable are fuel generators for small home usage or large households?
Yeah, can you hear me, Fadira?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, so talking about how cost effective and viable fuel generators are for small home users. So I will say it is not cost effective. And that's, talking from a total cost of ownership point of view. So years back, when awareness in alternate power solutions such as solar power was low, you could be excused, for using fuel generators. You could, give, reasons such as its reliability, the fact that it's there, provided it's in good condition whenever you need power supply, it's there to serve you and run, and then the option of having to power it through alternate means, through different varieties of, fuel. So those could be reasons why yesteryears it made sense to use generators. But even then, there's this, upfront cost. The upfront cost of owning generator has never been very cheap. Then cost of maintenance. But the tricky part is the fuel itself. You mentioned it in your opener, the rate at which the price of fuel has been changing. I think in the last 4 months or so, we've seen over 200% increase in the cost of fuel. But yes, that can be blamed on the removal of fuel subsidy. But I tell you, today we are at over 600 naira per liter, but we aren't there yet because the global average cost of petrol today is about 1,000. So, which means we probably should expect more increase in the cost of fuel. So that's a challenge when there is that unpredictability in the price of the fuel that runs the generator. And fuel availability is another challenge, Sometimes you have the money, but the gas stations are not even opened. So those are some of the challenges that comes with owning and using generators. And then to the non-monetary challenges of using generators, the noise, for instance. I remember in 2007 when I first switched to renewable energy means of power. It was because of the noise. It wasn't even about the cost. It was the noise for me. So noise and emissions are, serious concerns when you have to power your appliances using generators. There's even an increase. I saw a data recently, an increase in the rate of respiratory diseases. So these are some of the non-monetary challenges that comes with you powering your appliances with generator, and the environmental impacts, the release of harmful gases to the environment, nitrogen oxides, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, sometimes mercury into the atmosphere. So these are major challenges. I developed a model recently, and I updated it a few days ago based on current pricing, and I could see that if you currently use a generator and you switch to solar, in about as little as 4 years, you would have saved enough money that equals the cost of that investment. So from total cost of ownership point of view, it's not cost effective, whether from monetary or non-monetary point of view to run your appliances using fuel generators.
Thank you very much, Aziz. And you've touched on something very important that I want to ask Natasha about. So my next question is for you. In a real-life application of generators, are the fumes and noise from fuel generators severe enough to be harmful?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. I think Mr. Aziz definitely highlighted some really important points. I was at an event with different investors and founders across the energy landscape, and this was in Kenya. So when I was pitching, a lot of them were just nodding their heads like, yes, the noise from generators is half of the reason people don't even want to move here. They don't want to set up their head offices here. They're not interested in Nigeria. And a lot of the East Africans as well, they just could not even wrap their heads around how we live like this. So it's kind of been normalized a lot, but really it's not normal. We definitely need to sort that out. And another thing that I saw recently, I think I watched this film maybe last year. It's on Amazon Prime. It's called Eyimofe. Really, really amazing film about just the daily realities of being in Nigeria. And the first story was somebody whose family was just wiped out overnight just from a simple accident. And this happens frequently. And thankfully, there has been a lot of messaging recently in the past maybe few years around the importance of not sleeping with your generator inside your house. But just one night, this family, they forgot. It's just something as simple as a child forgetting to put their generator outside overnight, and they woke up without their family intact. So it is something that people are still going through every single day, and it's definitely harmful to public health, harmful to the environment, and something people are really still struggling with. Even last year, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, previous VP, noted that generator emissions are equivalent to all 11 million car fumes in Nigeria. So car fumes is something that globally people are already trying to run away from. See in London with that tax for non-electric cars, also just highlighting how toxic those fumes can be, and the fact that our generators are even more toxic than those cars people are trying to phase out across the world. It just highlights how we really do need to start switching.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And you mentioned something very important, the messaging that needs to be translated across the nation. And it just starts from something as little as that: educate the people on the harmful effects of the generator and how we can transition into cleaner fuels rather. Okay, thank you very much. And still on Natasha, I have another question. What energy mix and best practices can households adopt to extend the lifespan of their solar solutions?
That's a really good question. And it's something we were talking about on our team earlier, how apparently like in the 90s and 80s, people would lie to NEPA to prevent them from bringing like crazy high bills, which I thought was really funny. Especially like when we're trying to interact with people, when they want to switch to solar, it is the first thing you really ask, what do you want to power? And you have to really, really make sure that they're being truthful. So I think that is number one. Just be honest about what you want to power. Let us actually try and help you find the best solution so that it actually works for you. And just making sure that even if you say, okay, this is everything I want to power, we can help you walk through what that might look like pricing wise and everything, and then we can still amend it. Maybe change your habits and change like things around how you want to power your house. So yeah, I think that's definitely something really important to start with. And then after you get your solar product installed, just understanding, okay, sometimes you can work with the grid. If you have like access to grid electricity, you can work with a lot of inverters are hybrid. That's another thing people don't always like really understand, that you can charge it with the grid and with your solar panels. You could even get solar panels installed afterwards. Like there are like almost endless like different iterations of like renewable energy options, and that's something that we really try and like help walk people through. And then making sure that after you've improved your energy solution, that you can actually use the agreed appliances. Like don't just think, okay, yeah, I've got it now, let me just try my fridge, or let me try a couple more ACs. Don't do that. Or if you want to do that, just like call whoever installed for you and just make sure, okay, yeah, just have a conversation with them. Like for us, we just try and be as like open and as accessible as possible. Like there are no silly questions, so it's better to ask and not potentially blow up your house. I'm joking, that won't happen, but have any issues with your solar solution.
Agreed with all that you have said. Thank you very much, Natasha. Back to you, Henry. This question is for you. What level of power supply stability and sustainability? Oh, excuse me. What are rural and urban households' most pressing energy challenges and increasing energy costs?
Yeah, so personally, I think I like to always say this whenever I'm given an opportunity to speak and all of that. Is for Africa, our issue is not necessarily energy transition, but majorly our issue is energy accessibility, like access to energy, and then aside that, also affordability to like the affordability about energy within the region. So be that two major points that we always need to consider when we speak about energy, speak about electricity within the region. So fortunately enough, for the rural areas, their major concerns are not necessarily for their own, I would say, luxury consumption, usually around essentials. Essentials in the sense, for a rural farmer, you're looking at, okay, I've done so much plantations within the plantation seasons, and then we are at the point of harvest. So I've harvested this much, but then I can't necessarily sell this much within a specific period of time. There's a period of time he needs to be able to sell out all his produce from his farm. So, but then we understand that about maybe 80 to 90% of the produce from the farms and I would say vegetables that are quite perishables over time. So you actually need to store them or preserve them as adequately as possible. So how does he preserve this? How does he secure these items that he has actually produced from his farm? He requires energy, he requires electricity. So for him, it's not about luxury, it's an essential for him. So it's about how I would say, I'll use the word how affordable is it for him to use energy to preserve these items and then sell them at the end of the day. And at the end of the day, he's able to break even by saying, I sold this item by an amount X and by X amount. And then by the time I consider the amount I took into planting and all of that for this particular produce and also preserving it, I've made XYZ profits. You understand? That's for the rural aspect. Then for the people in the urban, I would say in the urban areas, it's not more about produce and all of it's somewhat close to, I would say, luxury, in the sense that, okay, they need to meet certain level of life, I would say, lifestyle in terms of energy access, cooling, heating, and all of that. So for them, it's less about affordability, accessibility. So somehow in the urban area, it's more accessible to energy, but it's more about affordability. So is it affordable? I really want cooling, but can I afford cooling looking at my income on an annual basis or a monthly basis or a weekly basis? Can I afford cooling? Or do I have to just make do with, even though it's very hot, about 35 to 40 degrees, I just have to find a way to live my life and then be able to just sustain it over time. So for we, I would say specifically in Western Africa, it's more of being able to juxtapose between accessibility and also affordability. So there needs to be a fine definition between those two factors and also energy transition.
Thank you very much, Henry. You're
Yeah.
absolutely right about that. Aziz, I have a question for you. How have the rising energy expenses affected the prospects of the nation's energy industry and national economy?
Hello?
Hi, Aziz. So my next question
Can you hear me,
was,
Fadia?
okay, yes, I
Okay.
can.
Okay. So can you say your question again, please?
Okay, so the question was, how have the rising energy expenses affected the prospects of the nation's energy industry and national economy?
Okay. So talking about the impact of rising energy expenses on the energy industry. I think especially when it is driven by increasing demand, it will be it will excite investment because suddenly there is a bigger headroom for margin for producers. And you can imagine they will want to do more to take full advantage of that situation. So for those that are already, for producers that are already producing, they want to double up on their production. And for investors outside, they see it as a viable industry to come into. And this can, at the end of the day, lead to the growth of that industry, jobs will be created, and there will be technological advancement. But where this increase is as a result of increase in cost of production, producers will have to put on their thinking cap to look at means of having internal efficiencies. For instance, you want to look at your supply chain strategy. Do you need to change suppliers? Which are the suppliers that will give you products at the best rate without compromising quality? You want to look inward, look at your manufacturing, for instance, look at your manufacturing processes. Is your current process wasteful? And you begin to adopt processes that helps you helps your materials, helps you to achieve materials and quantities that are as close as possible to the actual that is required. You want to look at your operations. You want to ensure that everything is optimized so that you can still survive in this kind of industry. And it could also lead to energy transition, where there is high cost of energy within the industry. When it becomes so difficult, you could find situations where producers, transit to alternatives, to cheaper alternatives. We've seen in this country where companies that are known for generator production have suddenly set up the solar power arm. We've seen companies that are recently rebranded, from being petrol and diesel, selling company to, energy company generally. So that's like, increasing the likelihood of diversifying into other, probably cheaper, more sustainable means of energy. Once they find that the ones they're currently in is not looking, there are issues, there are issues there. So I'm talking about the impact on the economy. You can imagine that organizations, very energy intensive industries like manufacturing and transportation will be impacted heavily. And what they will do is there will be high cost of production, definitely. And sometimes it makes them less competitive and could make their business struggle, and there could be job losses. And so once this happens to the consumer out there, things are expensive, energy is expensive, and because obviously the manufacturers would have transferred all of this cost through the price that is tagged to their products. So that this creates inflation in the economy. Things are very expensive. Buying activities slow down, and because of the wide impact of energy generally on the economy. Talk about land, air transportation, logistics, manufacturing. So because of this, and because energy is efficient, is essential. So you find stations where people still manage to buy. So disposable income shrinks. People have less to buy stuffs in the markets. The energy starts to slow down, and this could actually lead to a recession in an economy. But on the flip side, so the increase that puts customers in hardship could actually mean good news to government, because this could translate to more revenue for the government by way of tax, and such revenue could actually be put into supporting public services and creating infrastructure. And it could also be a way to sway trade balance in favor of countries and economies. So if you are a huge exporter of energy, for instance, and there is a high cost of energy in your land, I mean, it could help you, because now you have more inflow in foreign currency. It could actually favor you. And there are other, policy implications. There could be regulatory intervention where government comes in to begin to regulate tariff structure. There could be policy shifts. For instance, government could introduce subsidy, will begin to promote energy efficiency programs such as smart home development and all. And it could also lead to a situation where the country diversifies its energy mix completely. So, I mean, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, a couple of countries in Europe have done that already. So these are some of the impacts to the energy industry, and then to the economy as a whole.
Thank you very much, Aziz. You also touched on something Henry previously mentioned, just in terms of disposable income available, and also just on the minor levels, being able to store your produce if you're a farmer in rural areas, being able to store produce, but it also reflects on customers' buying power, because then the prices have to be increased to match all the hardships that are being faced on that front. Thank you very much, Aziz. Natasha, my next question is for you. Looking at the volatile history of energy costs, how can households adapt and properly plan their finances?
This is a tough one. So I will just start with everyone just realizing that it is incredibly tough for every single person. So like, just don't be so hard on yourself when you're just like frustrated and trying to make it all work. But the one hack I have for you is buy now, pay later. I will say that has really changed the whole energy landscape. As before, you would have to like really save up money, and every month perhaps the costs are just getting even more expensive, and you're almost like changing the goalpost when you want to buy a solar product. But with buy now, pay later, you're able to know the price, pay just a fraction of that upfront. So with us, it's about 30%, with our fintech partners. And then you can spread out the cost within 3, sometimes up to 24 months. And that enables you to lock in that price early. And then you just know that regardless of the prices changing over the next year, 2 years or whatever, you still have the price that you got it for since, and other people might be getting the same product but at a much higher cost. So buy now, pay later, lease to own, any kind of credit options available to you, I think definitely try and look into those so that you can get the best price. And then another thing is just generally changing your habits. If you know that your house is one that has had more of a liberal approach to utilizing energy, just making sure that you can also just try and like manage your habits. Just something that I know it sounds quite obvious, but you might not know that your child might be, using ACs and lights on full blast 24/7, and they just not really considering, because it's not their money. They are just doing whatever with it, but making sure your house can change their habits as well. And then just little things like, changing that 60-watt bulb to an 18-watt bulb, it can actually save you thousands every single month. And that just helps you kind of plan out how much you might be spending, even maybe before you switch to solar. And then just making sure that you're actually just being conscious of your finances, and speaking very directly and openly with whoever it is you want to get to install about what your needs are and how best that they can present a solution that works holistically for you.
Thank you very much, Natasha. Agreed. And on that, buy now, pay later is also something that Arnergy offer, as well as energy as a service for larger businesses. You also mentioned the fact that just changing some certain appliances within your home will make a massive difference to your energy bills at the end of the day. And with the rise of sustainable energy, there are now things like inverter ACs that are more efficient than the regular ACs on the market. So we partnered with the likes of Daikin to also promote and push this message, because again, like Natasha mentioned, a lot of people might just not be aware of how much the ratings and efficiency of appliances affects your overall cost at the end of the day. So thank you very much, Natasha, for that. I have a question for Henry. So how do the total ownership cost of solar solutions and generators compare over the short and long term?
Okay, so before I move directly to what your question focuses on, so just a bit of an addition to what Natasha also said is, if you look at the entire energy system in Nigeria, you might be confused to focus on just the initial cost of your entire solar solution, but then if then I would like to point out that when you're looking at the cost of energy, you're trying to look at two major factors. What are the I would say the cost of installation, which is literally the capex cost, and then what are the cost of operation, which is mainly the opex cost. So when it comes to I would say solar solution compared to I would say diesel or fuel, it's a case of solar solutions are a bit more expensive when it comes to the capex, but when it comes to operating costs, it is extremely high. I would use that word extremely. So by the time you do the overall cost in terms of initial cost of installation plus initial, but then subsequent cost of operation, you realize that the solar costs are, I would say, moderately less expensive compared to any other source of energy, which is literally either fuel, diesel, or any other source you can think of. So that's one key factor we need to also put into consideration. I think I missed your initial question. What was your initial question about Fadera?
Okay, hi Henry. My initial question was, how do the total ownership costs of solar solutions and fuel generators compare over the short and long term?
Yeah, so in terms of, okay, yeah, thank you for that reminder. So in terms of the short term, you might tend to look at what's the overall cost. But like I mentioned earlier on, the capex cost, which is the cost of installation for solar, might look like it is a bit more expensive than getting either a fuel generator or a diesel generator. But then as an engineer, you're not just looking at what's the initial cost it took you to procure the generator or the inverter or the fuel generator or diesel generator. you're looking at what's the operating cost over the lifetime of this particular project. And I can tell you for a fact, not even an assumption, for a fact that it is more expensive to run either diesel or generator over a specific period of time as compared to, I would say, your solar or even solar plus battery. You understand? Solar as a standalone is quite more cost effective as compared to solar plus battery. But then solar plus battery is even more cost effective as compared to either diesel or just fuel. Like Aziz mentioned earlier on, I think in the last 4 or 5 months, we experienced over, like, to be more specific, we've experienced about 300% increase in terms of fuel cost. And then I think diesel over the last 1 year, I think it's about 250% to about 300% cost increase. So if you put those two factors into consideration, you realize that it is even more cost effective in terms of operation, not only just initial cost. It is even more cost effective for you to run a solar solution than just a fuel or a diesel solution.
All right, thank you very much, Henry. Very insightful. My next question is for Aziz. How does the choice of solar battery affect solar solutions efficiency, costs, and lifespan?
Thank you, Fadira. Batteries, by the way, is where charges produced by the PVs are stored for later use. So talking about the effect of efficiency, cost, and lifespan, on the choice of batteries. So these parameters that you mentioned are very, very key. Efficiency, simply put, is how much of what is stored is available for use. Lifespan speaks to longevity, and cost is cost. But then we have various types of batteries with different qualities. You have the AGM battery, you have the gel battery, you have the flooded tubular batteries, you have lithium-ion batteries. So when we look at efficiency, for instance, these batteries have different characteristics. So let's take the charge-discharge efficiency, for instance, which is simply the very straightforward explanation of efficiency. How much of charges stored in batteries is available, is usable. So whereas lithium-ion batteries, you have about 95% guaranteed of what you stored in the battery. Lead acid is between 80 and 85%. So then let's look at depth of discharge, for instance. And depth of discharge simply means how deep can you go? How deep can you discharge your batteries? So, I mean, it's not 100%, in case you don't know. So whereas for a lithium-ion battery, at full charge, and I should say this, that depth of discharge is actually how deep you can go without having performance issues. So you could actually go below that, but then the manufacturer is saying performance is not guaranteed, right? So for a lithium-ion battery, you're able to dip as far as 90% of what is stored without impacting the cells, without threatening the cells. Whereas for lead acid batteries, once you do 50%, you can't do more than that, else you risk the life of your cells. So excuse me. And for OPZ battery, for instance, deep discharge is about 80%. You're able to do up to 80%. So and another parameter that speaks to efficiency is the C rating. So C rating, by the way, is the measure of the current that it will feed into your battery in form of charge, and the current that you can take out, powering your load. So that also varies. That also varies. You have the for instance, a battery that is 6,000 kilowatt hour and is rated 1C means you can do. I mean, the 6 kilowatt hour. I mean, means you can actually pull 6 kilowatts continuously for 1 hour if the rating is 1C. But if it is rated 0.5C, even though it's the same 6 kilowatt hour, you can pull up to 6 kilowatts. It will be half of that. That will be 3 kilowatts, but then you can draw that for 2 hours. So these are parameters that vary and that are important that you need to consider against your load profile, against the use cases before you decide on what battery to use. That's talking about efficiency. So let's look at lifespan as one of the parameters that you mentioned. There's something called battery cycle life, which is how many times you can charge and discharge your battery before it reaches its end of life. So in the case of lithium-ion battery, it could go as high as 7,000 charge-discharge cycles, whereas for lead-acid batteries, 1,000 cycles on the average. So this is a very, very key parameter in your choice of battery, because the higher the battery cycle life, the longer the life of the battery. And another parameter I like to talk about around lifespan is the calendar life of the battery, which is like the shelf life and supply chain. So they are saying whether in use or not in use, there's a limit to how long you can keep your battery without losing the health of those cells. That's the state of health. So that's another, and it varies from battery to battery. Whereas for lithium-ion batteries, it could be up to 10 years. For lead acid, between 3 and 5 years. Even when you are optimal, the best use, the best temperature, you're trying to conserve your energy, between 3 to 5 years, the battery will reach its calendar life. So that's very important parameter to consider. And when you talk about cost, so for cost, the upfront cost of lithium is higher. But then because of its longevity, I just told you it could do up to 7,000 charge-discharge cycles, and it requires minimum to no maintenance. So at the end of the day, lithium-ion battery will give you it's cheaper, it's more cost-effective. Whereas lead-acid batteries, even though the upfront cost is lower, but then the lifespan is very short. So if you look at it from total cost of ownership point of view, again, you will
We seem to have lost Aziz, but as he was saying, the difference between lithium and lead acid batteries are vast in performance. Oh, we have him back. Okay, hi Aziz, we lost you a little bit.
Oh wow! At what point did you lose me?
You were talking about the lithium and the lead acid, the difference.
Okay, was I talking about the cost?
Yes, you were talking about the cost.
Yeah. So I was just saying, as you choose your battery, it is more cost effective to use the lithium-ion battery because of the longevity. It gives you better value for your money. It's able to last you long. I said initially that it could do up to 7,000 charge-discharge cycles, whereas the other batteries will do less.
Yes, agreed. Thank you very much, Aziz, for that. Now we'll have
I don't know if you can permit me to chip in something here alongside what Aziz had said.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So in terms of charge cycle, like you mentioned, you're not just looking at which one is even more cost effective. You're looking also translate. I don't know if you can hear me clearly.
We lost you a bit, but you're back now.
Okay, so this also translates in terms of, because there are two major costs when it comes to I would say a solar solution. You're looking at the battery cost. You're also looking at the cost of the PV solution. So in terms of the battery solution, looking at what's the charge cycle. So is it I would say, is it lead acid solution that is more effective, or is it lithium ion that is more effective? This also plays out in terms of when you're talking about the PV solution, because the PV and also the battery are the two main I would say component when it comes to solar solutions. So for the PV component, you're looking at what's the warranty lifespan of the product that I'm getting. So it's not just about getting the cheapest PV panel in the market. That is my main concern. I'll use an example. For us, one of the things we're looking at is there are two main factors. Is I would say the product, in terms of the product warranty, and the power output warranty. So the product warranty is the physical structure of the product. How long does it last? And then in terms of the power warranty, what's the warranty level in terms of this particular product will produce a specific percentage of power over a particular point in time. So these two main factors are one of the key factors we put into consideration when you speak about the PV modules you're using to design the solution, and in terms of the entire components of your entire solution.
Thank you very much for that addition, Henry, and you're very correct about that. Now we'll just have a poll launched just to get our audience involved. So it should have popped up on the screen. The first question is, what percentage of your current household energy consumption is self-generated? Number 2, which power source provides the majority of your household energy needs? And number 3, what factor is the most influential when choosing your alternative power source? So if you could just select the answer that's most relevant to you. But we'll get straight back into the questioning, and I would like to go back to Natasha. So what does energy efficiency mean to Nigerian homes, and how does it affect household utility bills?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think I'd also love to hear from the audience if you can type, what does energy efficiency mean to you? I'd be really curious to see directly. But it's an interesting one, as it's something that's kind of constantly talked about across the energy landscape. It started with like, reduce, reuse, recycle kind of messaging, that we have like a finite amount of resources on the planet, and we've got to make sure that we're using them efficiently. But I think the reality is, across Africa, we are the continent that pollutes the least, utilizes the least amount of resources, but like unfortunately bears the brunt of the burden of the impacts of climate change. So it's one of those things where, when we're already like not polluting as much, it's like, it is a bit difficult to speak in languages of like, okay, yeah, still reduce even more. But I think the kind of important thing to note is, when you are transitioning to a solar solution, it's important to just make sure that you're very conscious of what the implications of your usage actually does mean. Like, I think naturally we are already quite energy conscious for the most part. If you understand what it is that you're paying for, and like how that actually affects your budget, the people are typically quite conscious. It's just like actually understanding how to maximize what it is you're trying to do. And I think that's another thing when we're speaking in terms of switching to solar. I think sometimes the language can sound like we're trying to like be limiting and making sure that you're reducing and squeezing and accommodating and compromising as much, but sometimes it's not actually that. Like, we want you to get the most out of your product, have it for the longest amount of time, make sure it's durable, it's sustainable, it's working amazingly for you. So in terms of energy efficiency, it really is just getting the best products, like Padara even mentioned. So a lot of solar companies are working with appliance manufacturers and distributors that have like great products on offer that work really well with solar inverters, and they like, on the back end, it is a lot of like testing and implementing. Like, I've been on the shop floor a lot, just seeing like, okay, which products work best with which inverters. So there is a lot of like work that goes behind the scenes to make sure that these appliances actually work with the inverter. So making sure that when you're picking in the appliances or trying to upgrade and trying to change, just asking, because we don't actually also expect you to know every single thing about what is energy efficiency and what appliances work well with everything, and what's a wattage, what's a voltage, everything. For the most part, like a lot of companies have dedicated teams that are there to help you out with your transition, ask anything you need to ask, and make sure that you're getting the most out of your inverter. So yeah, we've spoken about your energy habits, like making sure that that's like compatible with like what you want to be spending, and then your energy efficiency, your appliances, making sure that they work really well, and then yeah, you're just getting the solar system that is optimal and works well for you. And then another point is that, like, yeah, it can actually reduce your cost by about 40%. That's something that to highlight, because I mean, people are price conscious, and you really should be. This is not a small investment, so just trying to weigh up the cost actually, and you can do it. Like, we have a calculator on our website that you just put in what is you want to power and the solution you would get, and then you can just calculate that this can reduce your energy bill sometimes up to 100%. But I'd say on average about 40%.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And rightly so, solar solutions can greatly help reducing your monthly spend on energy. So my next question is for you, Aziz. What real life benefits and advantages?
Yeah, so thanks, Fadira. So the real life benefits that energy efficiency can bring to Nigerian homes. I take this to mean that for you to benefit from that, assume you are switching from whatever source of energy you are on at the moment. First of all, switching to the one that is more efficient, number one. And as you switch, you want to conserve energy. You don't want to be wasteful. So if you take those two steps, number one, your energy bills will reduce because you are able to of power of energy, you're able to avoid those sort of energy bills will drop. That's the first thing. And because the value in solar power is in the long term. So yeah, like we know the upfront cost of acquiring a solar solution, it's high, right? But as time goes on, when I was talking the other time, I told you about a model that shows that if you're using petrol today, by year 4, a little more than year 4, you would have saved enough an amount that is equal to your cost of acquiring that solution. You know, and if you're using diesel by as early as year 3, you've already saved enough money equal to the cost of you acquiring that solar solution. So, and we're talking about a solution that is able to last you 10 years and more. So imagine when you're done, when your payback is 3 years, 4 years, and you still have 7 more years. So what it means is for those from year 4, for diesel from year 4, and for petrol from year 4.5. No, yeah, for diesel from year 4 and for petrol from year 5. So you can imagine 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All of those years, it's all savings for you. So meaning when you switch to energy efficient solutions, you don't only reduce your energy bills, you save in the long term. And another thing you do for yourself is you insulate yourself against the frequent changes in prices of diesel, of petrol, those other expensive alternatives, because you have decided, you have taken that decision to acquire the one that gives you more comfort. So you have insulated yourself. When people talk about the increasing cost of petrol, increasing cost of diesel, you are not as impacted as somebody who relies 100% on those energy sources. So another thing it does for you is it gives you more headroom to add more appliances. For instance, I mean, you want to power air conditioners. So because you are energy efficient, because you have an energy source that is efficient, you're able to create headroom for more appliances to suit your needs. Your air quality for those that if you have to add air conditioners, for instance, if you have to add a heater, for instance, so there is comfort level is increased, the quality of the air you breathe in is also improved, and quietness, don't forget. So once you switch to this energy efficient medium of getting power, quietness is one of the benefits you get. And and there are also environmental benefits. So emission is reduced. You're not, exposed to respiratory diseases as much as you would have if you were burning petrol or diesel. And then you also help the environment. You also contribute to, keeping the environment healthy, SDG 12 or so. So those are some of the immediate benefits of switching to energy efficient solutions.
Thank you very much for that, as he is very detailed and in-depth. And my last question is for Henry. How can households with limited budgets and capital achieve optimal energy efficiency?
So when it comes to trying to switch from the regular source of energy that you currently have, one of the key things I think I always try to preach to everyone I come across is you need to be able to discuss or have a conversation with someone who is more, I'll say, more technically more feasible to be able to propose a solution to you, and not just discussing with some random person who thinks he understands how the industry works. So you're trying to discuss with someone who understands the cost that is required of you to be able to switch from the regular source that you currently have to the more cost-effective one. So you're not just looking at the cost; you're looking at your overall, I would say, the effectiveness of the solution you're trying to switch into. So what I try to preach to people is, when it comes to, there are two major pitfalls I think people usually fall into is when it comes to their understanding about the storage that they have. So like Mr. Aziz rightly mentioned earlier, so if you're talking about, I would say, lead acid, you are literally, whatever type of lead acid solution you're speaking about, you are literally considering just about 50% depth of discharge when it comes to lead acid. And when you're speaking about lithium ion, you're speaking about, okay, lithium ion are a bit more tolerable. They can tolerate about 90 to 100% depth of discharge. So you need to be able to ask someone who is looking to switch. You want to be able to have that honest conversation. I don't want to just be telling you, okay, no, I can propose to you is a battery solution that can last you XYZ number of hours, and this is the number of charge cycle you can obtain by this solution. But you need to be able to speak to, I would say, a qualified technician or a qualified entity who is telling you, if you go for a lead acid solution, the maximum DOD you can have is 50%. So even if you have a 9.6 kilowatt energy storage solution, the maximum you can get from it at any point in time is about half of that. That's 50% of that. So that you can retain the 50% depth of discharge, and then before you recharge it again. But if it's lithium ion, you have that leverage of going about 90 to 100% depth of discharge. That means if you have a 9.6 kilowatt storage solution, you can actually utilize almost 100% of it before you start recharging it again. So aside that, there's also another point that I think a lot of people misconstrue. When it comes to what's the adequate amount of solar panel you need to install on your roof to be able to provide your load and at the same time also charge your battery. Because a lot of people only look at, okay, what is the amount of solar panel I need to charge to provide for my load? But then if the solar panel you have provides for 100% of your load, what then charges the battery? a general principle. Energy cannot be created or generated from an abstract point of view. It needs to either be transformed from one point to another point. So, whether you like it or not, energy in your batteries has to be from another source. So, and the only source that we know that is more technically feasible is the one from your, I would say, from your solar panels. So, your solar panels needs to be adequately sized to be able to provide your load and then also charge your batteries adequately. You understand? Because you don't want to be spending 12 hours trying to charge a battery that you charge in the space of 1 or 2 hours. You don't want to spend 12 hours trying to charge that battery. So two key factors I think everybody needs to be more, I would say, more focused on is the, I would say, the proper design in terms of the battery DOD and the battery design in terms of how long it takes to charge your battery and then how many hours you expect your batteries to last you. Then the second key factor is in terms of the PV solution. Is your PV designed to be adequate enough to provide adequate power for your running load and at the same time provide, I would say, a subsequent or an additional storage or additional electricity to be able to also charge your battery storage for, I would say, overnight usage.
Thank you very much, Henry.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I actually have one question that I would like to pose to all three panelists, but we'll just stay with you, Henry. Okay, answer first.
Yeah.
So the question
sure.
is, for households seeking to invest in efficient solar solutions, what practical advice will you give on the possible pitfalls and challenges?
So one, I'll state this for a fact. It is more expensive to run your household by either fuel or diesel. That is for a fact now. Some say 6 months ago, it was a bit of a debate between is fuel more cost effective than running via solar solutions or storage. But the last 4 months where we know the true cost of obtaining, I would say, fuel, we are quite certain that it is more cost effective to run a solar solution. So it's more expensive to run a diesel solution. One of the things I would propose to people is when you speak to the right people, two key things where they usually miss it out is your solar solution, in terms of solar panels you have on your roof, is either undersized or oversized. Undersized in the sense that it is adequate enough to provide you your daytime load. Like we know, solar only it has a bell, I would say a bell shaped production in the sense that all through the night till about 7 a.m. it doesn't have any production. But then about 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. it takes a curve that goes like this and then drops. So between that 8 or 9 a.m. till about 4 p.m., is the energy generated within that point in time adequate enough for you for all your equipment or your personal utilization? So if it is not enough, you need to have adequate storage to be able to store that excess energy that is being generated during the day. If you're trying to avoid the excess energy, you might likely be undersizing your solar solution. So if you undersize it, you will not have that excess energy to be able to store in your battery and provide for times when there is no solar solution. So one of the things I think I always preach to people is speak to the right person, speak to an entity like Arnergy, who will not just propose a solution to you, they are looking to design a solution that best fits your demand and then also fits that best also consider your, I would say, your financial pockets and then all the excesses that you can potentially have.
Thank you very much for that, Henry. And Aziz, I would also like to hear your answer to that same question.
Okay, so yeah, the question is that pitfalls and challenges, right?
Yes, that's correct. So I can repeat it, the whole thing. So for households seeking to invest in efficient solar solutions, what practical advice will you give on the pitfalls, on the possible pitfalls and challenges?
Okay, so the first one is, which is the first thing to do. So your energy assessment. So if you, by the way, energy assessment speaks to how you are able to determine what energy, what is the amount of energy that is required, that you require. So you need to be careful. You need to ensure that you get that right. It's not enough to, sometimes it's not enough to just draw up a list of your appliances and then expect that you could get, a design from that, because that list may not address the operating hours, of those appliances that you had listed. It does not address which one do you power during the day, which one do you power during the night. So sometimes it's important that you go as far as using some of the tools that organizations like Arnergy have. We call it the data logger, which you're able to plug into your home for a number of days, and it tells us exactly your consumption pattern. So that's where to start. So ensure that you get that right, that your energy need is well measured. So another thing that is important is ensure that your roof condition is, it's in good condition. Your roof is in good condition to take on the solar installation, because sometimes people are eager to switch to solar, but then their roof is not in good shape. We will normally not go ahead if your roof is not healthy. We will advise the customer to do the right thing to repair the roof. So check your roof. That could be one area that could, expose you. If an installer goes ahead to install on a bad roof, you may not enjoy that investment. So another one is ensure that when it's time to install, ensure that you're speaking to the right organizations that are able to help you with the right component selection, because it starts from that too. It's important. It's an industry where there are lots of, various components. The variety is wide. There are different kinds of solar panel, polycrystalline, monocrystalline, and they have their different efficiencies. There are different kinds of charge controllers, MPPT, pulse width modulated. There are quite a wide range, and we talked about battery earlier on. So ensure that you're talking to an organization that is able to select components that matches your requirements, that are able to, give you the best quality, not just, pick the cheapest in the market. And when it comes to installation too, I will imagine that a company that has a good reputation is who you should be talking to, because if your solution is not well installed, that could also expose you. Shading is another thing. Ensure that your home is free of structures that could cause you problems. Even though we at Arnergy, we will do that job for you. We don't just go ahead and install. Before we install, we check. We do a shadow analysis and tell you how you're doing, how you're doing in terms of shading. But beyond, when it is installed, you can also check. Seen a customer in the past that complained of poor performance, but it turned out shortly after installation, there was a tree that was going somewhere. There are buildings that came up somewhere. So those are some of the things you need to watch. And your cost and the financing option too is very important. So if you want to switch to solar power, ensure that you're talking to organizations that are flexible enough to give you multiple acquisition options, so that you have the opportunity of choosing the one that matches your peculiarity, your purchasing power, if you like. So those are some of the things I think you should check, and then you should monitor and maintain your system. Those are some of the things I think is important for those that have successfully switched, because if you don't do maintenance, it could cause problems. Solar solution, you don't just install solar solutions and walk away. There could be, you have the outdoor components of the solar solution, the PV that is mounted on your roof. So if you install solar and you don't do routine maintenance regularly, dust will gather, particles will gather on that PV, and the performance will dip, the yield will dip. So that's one other area I think people should be wary of as they switch to solar power.
Thank you very much, Aziz. And just to add to what you just mentioned, yes, there's a maintenance cost for solar solutions like the cleaning of the panels, but that's really during the dry season where dust accumulates, and it's not anything comparable to the cost of maintaining fuel generators. But lastly, I would like to hear from Natasha. Can I please get your insights on the pitfalls and challenges that could potentially be faced by customers exploring solar?
Yeah, I'm glad that we've touched on all of the benefits of solar and how great it is and how it works, but there are also things to consider. I think Mr. Aziz and Mr. Henry have really highlighted a lot of these challenges. So I'm definitely going to echo a lot of what has been said, and then just kind of highlight other things that I was thinking about, really with the buy now, pay later option, which someone mentioned in the comment, like how they can access that. A lot of solar companies are providing that option, partnering with fintech. So check Arnergy, you can check our website, iwaanaenergy.com. And you'll find more information there on pricing as well. Someone's else asking about like the price of a different kVA. That information is definitely accessible on our websites. And when you're like looking at the buy now, pay later option, is like, can you actually afford it? If you have selected that you want to spread out payments, make sure that you can actually like adequately afford it. We don't want to hear stories later on that, oh, it's time to pay school fees or whatever it is. Like these are things that you have prepared for. So it does become a pitfall when either your system is being repossessed or you're now having somebody calling you almost every day to get their money back. So making sure you are picking the options that work best for you. And then also just remembering that some of these components, they are like components that should be handled by professionals. It's not just any and everybody you should get to do your installation. As mentioned, making sure you work with reputable companies and reputable installers. As there was recently an incident with some battery acid in a car, which is definitely not easy to deal with or clean up. So some of the materials are not always so safe for just people who don't understand how to use them. It's not just a over-the-counter product that you can just get and it's completely safe for everybody. You have to have an expert handling some of these materials, just because they're so like kind of everyday. People just forget that it can be toxic, it can be risky. So making sure that you're not just diving into it without fully understanding. And I'm seeing some questions as well about the difference between PV and charge controller and inverter and things, and definitely try and utilize some of the resources. I'm sure we will have blogs available. I even have set up a TikTok for Arnergy. There's some short videos on there that people can just review to understand these minor components. And yeah, just you can even just give us a call afterwards to explain every single item for you, making sure that you understand what it is you're buying as well, because it can become a challenge when you're not even sure what is what. So I think those are the main ones that I'll stick with for now.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And I'd also like to thank Henry and Aziz for your input to that question. As Natasha rightly mentioned, we've spoken about the benefits, but we should also touch on the not disadvantages per se, but like mention the pitfalls that could be experienced when embarking on your solar journey. Okay, now we'll have the results of the poll displayed any moment now. But I can see all the questions from the audience, and thank you very much for them. We will address some of them. Due to the interest of time, we can't go through all of them, but we will definitely try to get an answer over to you via email, the email that you used to register. Okay, going through the poll, question 1, which was what percentage of your current household energy consumption is self-generated? Majority of you selected below 20%. Well, that's good. So that's assuming that you receive adequate supply from grid. Question 2, which was, which power source provides the majority of your household energy needs? You also agreed on the fact that the national grid provides most of your electricity. However, not a close second, but a second is solar energy system. So it's great to see that that's already being adopted. And the purpose of webinars like this is to continue educating the masses on the benefits of your personal benefits, environmental benefits as well of embarking on your solar journey. And lastly, question 3, which was, what factor is the most influential when choosing your alternative power source? The most popular answer was purchase and setup cost. So rightly so, as mentioned, for solar, the initial upfront cost is a lot, but when you put it into perspective over the years and analyze your potential cost savings, you then realize how beneficial it is over fuel generators. Okay, thank you very much to the audience for participating in that. We'll just take some questions that you've left. I would like to direct this question to Aziz. Do you think renewable energy can solve energy poverty in Africa? And if yes, how possible?
Yeah, so definitely renewable energy can solve, did you say poverty problem in Africa?
Yes, that's right, energy poverty.
Energy poverty problem, definitely. So it's just a matter of access. I believe with the right access, and by access, I don't only mean availability of solutions, that's reliable solutions. I also mean flexibility in terms of payment, affordability, simply put. So if we have tested the solution, we can tell you, we can guarantee you that it works. There was a time in the past when conversations were usually around, does solar work? I think we've gone past that phase. So now we know that solar works. So having known that, so it's now simply a case of making it accessible, making it affordable to Africans. And that's why we would need a lot of support from, support from even outside of the continent to see how we can push, and from the government, but maybe I should have started from the government, give producers that enabling environment to be able to make this, products available to more people. So definitely, because it works, and because the cost sometimes is why there is, the access is limited. So once we are able to, overcome that hurdle, yes, it could actually truly solve the energy poverty problems in Africa.
Thank you very much, Aziz, and I definitely agree with what you just said. I would like to direct this next question to Natasha. So on the issue of accessibility and affordability of energy for rural and urban people, how do we ensure that energy is being accessible in the last mile communities, considering their economic status?
This is that $1 million question, isn't it? There's been a lot of companies coming up, especially in the past few decades, trying exactly to solve this challenge. I think it has been easier to start with the urban areas, really nail those, and then try and replicate and contextualize solutions for the rural communities. I think the Rural Electrification Agency in Nigeria is one of Africa's best. They have received vast amounts of funding and are really trying to crack this challenge. So I'd love to hear people's experiences with them. I haven't work with them directly, but just the work that I'm seeing them do has really been great. They even provide funding for electricity companies to start up, solar companies to start up in rural areas, doing mini grids, solar home solutions. I think that is really great. I don't want it to be like buy now, pay later is my answer to everything, but buy now, pay later in rural communities, it has proven to work, especially when people do have that like recurring income. But the things to take into consideration, which I've seen some fintechs do, is realize that in more rural settings, they might not have monthly salaries like we do in urban areas. They might be seasonal, they might be farmers. So just trying to make sure that your lending practices also take into account the realities in rural areas and making sure that people can still access solar products. Pico solar is something that I think is quite interesting. There's really small solar products, as I'm not even sure if they count towards like energy accessibility in this kind of this climb, but that is typically what people have seen. And I think what it is now is just to try and like increase those capacity. If you can get Pico solar into those communities, I'm sure you can get 500 watt SHS and keep climbing. So just to learn from what has already been done, talking directly to people that have done similar things within those spaces and replicate. So for us, we're really big on distribution. We started out as a hardware company almost solely, had like 500 watt systems that would power your basic appliances. And we just found that people were calling us from all across Nigeria that wanted like different size products. And we're just like, instead of us running around the whole of Nigeria trying to install in even really remote and rural locations, why don't we just connect them to people that are already there? So what we do now is we're doing that like very manual, hard slog of trying to find rural installers and electrical suppliers and everything in these locations and trying to get them on our platform so that anybody who calls us from the middle of, I don't even know where, we can easily find them the best provider for them and help them finance their system as well. So we're just kind of one part of the solution, trying to ensure that distribution companies have avenues to distribute their product and also help get them financing. Yeah, that's just one solution. I'm sure there's a lot of other ones coming up as well.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And finally, last question for Henry from the audience. Do you think manufacturing batteries in country would promote your business and make sustainable energy affordable for potential customers, or the government subsidize the rechargeable batteries?
I might not necessarily speak to the government being able to subsidize the rechargeable batteries, but I'll speak from a holistic point of view of a manufacturer and who manufactures out of Nigeria. So one of the key things I think I understand when it comes to manufacturing and being able to supply across the world is, as an OEM, one of your key point of reference is, I would say, the economics of scale. You understand? Your profit is not just about one particular item that you're able to sell. Your profit is across the number of items you're able to sell over a short period of time. So basically, your profit over a unit product is almost very I would say insignificant. So, but over I would say a multiple of products, you'll get to see some significant product. So when it comes, I think from a solar module manufacturing point of view, it also translates to whether a battery, whether a mountain race, or any other components that are quite necessary in terms of a solar solution. So at the moment, it might not look as cost effective to start manufacturing locally here in Nigeria, because the question you ask yourself is, if you set up I'll use solar module as a point of reference. If you set up like right now, JA Solar is a 90 gigawatt manufacturing company on an annual basis. So if you set up a 9 gigawatts manufacturing capacity in terms of solar manufacturing, is Nigeria enough to consume that whole production? So if Nigeria is not enough to consume that whole production, is the nearby, I would say, environment, which is like West Africa and Africa as a whole, ready to consume that entire consumption or in terms of production? If it's not, where then do I supply this excess? Is it Europe? Is it America? Is it Asia? What's the cost of transportation between manufacturing here in Africa and then shipping to Europe and then shipping to Asia, as against manufacturing in Asia or China or America and then shipping down to Africa? So by the time you do this cost comparison, to be very honest and to be fair to ourselves, it seems a bit more cost effective to manufacture in, I would say, China and then ship down to Africa. And as much as I understand, or I think I crave to want to experience a point where it's the reverse. That's the case. But at the moment, looking at the costs and the economic implication, it's not entirely cost effective for us to start manufacturing here in Africa, because, as I mentioned, the economics of scale, Africa is not enough. The demand from Africa is not enough to consume I would say, cost-effective manufacturing plant.
Okay, thank you very much, Henry, for that insight. I hope your questions that we've been able to address have been answered. However, in the chat box, there has been a link posted. If we haven't been able to get to your questions, please do direct them there. Natasha also mentioned the fact that trainings and partnering with distributors and rural installers is what is the key to the future. And that's also something we do at Arnergy. So we run installer programs, we partner with distributors, resellers. So if you're someone like that, please do reach out to us. And we've come to the end of our webinar. We have used up all the time available. So I just want to say a big thank you to my three panelists. Thank you for the information that you've divulged. And I'm sure everyone has learned at least one or two things from your wise words. So thank you very much. And thank you to the audience as well for joining. Please do have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. It's been really great. I've learned from the panelists as well.
Amazing.
Cheers, everyone. Nice to
Thank you.
connect with you, Natasha and Aziz.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, bye. Take care, everyone.
Yeah,
Bye.
cheers, everyone.